Hi everyone, I'm Kailani, and this is the Kai Report, where I cover the truths about music and music education. Today we're meeting with Dr. Justin Bartlett, one of our newest piano professors at Oclef. Feel free to introduce yourself, Justin.
Hi, thanks so much for having me, Kailani, and I'm looking forward to it.
Alrighty, so let's get started. One of the quintessential questions for every musician: how did you begin with music, and most importantly, why piano?
Well, both my parents were musicians, actually, so that helped that there was always music playing in the house growing up. I was always exposed to it. And I got curious about starting an instrument. Initially, I actually wanted to learn like cello or a violin,
Mhm.
um, but I don't think my parents were too keen on having a beginning violinist in the house. We already owned a piano, so it was just very convenient for me to start with piano lessons. So I did that when I was about 8, and I got some Suzuki lessons. Yeah, and my mom would practice with me when I was a kid. That's how I got my musical beginnings.
Oh, that's so cute. So, with having like musical parents, did that ever influence how your lessons went or how practice at home was like?
Well, it was great because my mom would always make sure that I practiced properly, which naturally my teacher was thrilled with because I'd always come in prepared. So it was a big help because when you're a kid, you're 8 years old, 9 years old. It's very hard to focus and to discipline yourself when you're practicing. So it was good that I had musical parents who could always help me.
I guess on that note too, was it ever difficult at any point or was it kind of easy since they were around to help?
Yeah, I think I hit a phase probably in my early teens where it was difficult to stay motivated, um, because my parents were wise enough that they knew they couldn't practice with me forever. So, you know, I had to find that discipline on my own, and then there were other things going on in my life that distracted me from music. So there was like a little time where I had a lack of motivation, but I actually ended up changing teachers. It was just time for a change, and I found a really wonderful teacher who just fed my inspiration with music. She would always have me listen to concerts or record video programs that were on TV that she thought would be inspirational for me, and just got me really engaged. And then things sort of took off from there.
Oh, that sounds so exciting compared to the learning experiences that I've heard so far. A lot of them are very strict and they're very boring sometimes. So I'm glad that, she was able to kind of immerse you into music, not just from like the instrument, but also like with real life and recordings and concerts. That's incredible. That's so fun. Did that have any influence on your decision to pursue music or?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because I was so musically inspired in high school, and I just loved it. I didn't know anything about technique or music theory or all this technical information you acquire in conservatory. I just loved it, and it was something that was just special to me, and I really identified with. And so I just took that into college with me, and had to navigate the whole world of professional music after that, which is a different kind of worms. But yeah.
Where did you go to school by any chance?
I did my undergrad in Oberlin. It's like in a tiny, tiny town in Ohio, rural Ohio. The great thing about that school is it's very small and it has an equally strong college attached to it. So while I was there focusing on music, I was surrounded by people who did all different kinds of things, and that was really enriching.
So, at the time, did you have like a plan to go into music education or is it kind of just something that happened?
I think a lot of people sort of assume that they're going to be teaching, when they get a music degree, even if it's a performance degree. Not everybody goes on to be a concert soloist, obviously. Very few people do. So I knew teaching was going to be sort of in the cards for me. But fortunately, I've always been the kind of person that teaching is really interesting for me. I enjoy it a lot. Even when I was starting out teaching and I wasn't a very good teacher, and maybe my students didn't enjoy it, I still really enjoyed the process of teaching and learning more about how to deal with different kinds of people, different kinds of learners, and always expanding your horizon musically. So
Definitely. Did you have like any major teaching experiences that kind of stuck by you as you were going through school?
Yeah, yeah. So I really started teaching seriously when I got into my master's, and I did that at the Jacobs School of Music in Indiana. So I got one of the AIs, the associate instructor positions, where it's basically work study. They give you some financial aid and a stipend, and you teach group piano to a couple different groups of people. You teach it to non-music majors who are just curious about music. So I always liked teaching that class. And then you teach it to music majors who do something that's not piano, like voice or clarinet or composition, who nonetheless still have to know their way around the piano. So you're getting them ready for like the piano proficiency exams.
Oh,
And then I had like a whole private studio outside of that I was running. I had a bunch of private students who were in the university, who were kids outside of the university. I also taught for the pre-college piano program at IU, so I had a lot of really, really young beginners. And I just taught all the way through my doctorate and master's degree. And after that, I stayed on for an additional year and taught some college students who were majoring in piano and who were doing a minor in piano, but like majoring in composition.
oh, okay.
Yeah, that's kind of how I got my start teaching. And then recently, what I've been doing for like the last 4 years of my life professionally is being a collaborative pianist at the university, especially with the pre-college program. And that's been great from an educational perspective because I work with beginner violinists all the way to their most advanced years. And I sit in their lessons with these teachers who have devoted their lives to teaching children, decades and decades of experience. And I've learned so much from that. So yeah, I've had lots of interesting learning experiences.
Yeah, and then going into what a collaborative pianist is, so from what I'm getting, it's kind of like, so mainly you're a pianist, but you're working with other musicians, other instruments, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. Basically, anytime a singer or a violinist or whatever, somebody who's not a pianist needs to play a sonata or a concerto, something involving another ensemble or a pianist, I cover for that and I play chamber music, that kind of thing.
Ooh, okay, that sounds so fun. I was thinking about getting into accompaniment.
Yeah, it's if you're thinking about it, you should really do it. It's fun. Yeah, because you're always playing with other people, and it's great that way.
One of like my most accompaniment-ish experiences was in high school. I kind of got really bored playing piano by myself. I thought it was not as fun as it would be with other people. So I joined different combos and stuff like that, but I got the most out of it when I joined my high school's choir. My choir director offered the accompaniment role because we had never had one before. And that was so fun. It's definitely, I think, a nice break from everything.
Yeah.
Whether it be super classical music or they're deciding to play something very pop-like or, something modern. I think it's kind of a nice little relief. So maybe I'll look into collaborative piano. That sounds exciting.
Yeah, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, so tying everything back to the teaching, did you have any opportunities for growth while you were teaching? And, were you satisfied with your situation?
Yeah, I mean, I like working with my students a lot, and working with different kinds of people. That part has always been satisfying. I think what I've realized is that it's really hard to give everything the student you want without a community supporting you and supporting the student.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, having a private studio is hard. Like I'd like to organize studio classes where students can perform on a regular basis. And, if it's just little old me, it's hard to make that happen, right?
Yeah.
Or opportunities for them to get together. If you're just a private studio, it's harder to have that kind of establishment in place.
Yeah, it's definitely, hard organizing bigger things beyond just one-on-one lessons when you're a private instructor. As a student, I mean, I still got a lot out of, my instructor and everything, but I think I really craved something more like kind of like a classroom setting, I guess, or something more of like group work and stuff like that.
Yeah, having friends, connecting.
Yeah, tying back into the whole collaborative piano mentality.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was, I wouldn't say lonely, but it was very independent, I think, as a student.
Yeah, I think that loneliness you get from being a piano student is kind of unique to the instrument, right? If you're a singer, you sing in choir. If you're a violinist, you play in orchestra, quartets, all these kinds of things. But piano, it can be hard because you're always just alone, and then you go on stage and you play the solo. So I think any kind of learning environment which can bring people together and have them enjoy each other's company and feed off of one another's energy is a really great thing.
Yeah, definitely. On that note of isolation, so COVID-19 was probably the biggest thing that has happened for many musicians lately. How did COVID affect your teaching situation? And, life as a musician probably was a little bit tough, I would assume.
Yeah, it was very difficult. Obviously, you can't really be a collaborative pianist online. I tried so many different programs with weird, sketchy sounding names and spent endless hours over tech problems, tearing my hair out. And it's just the simultaneous playback thing just doesn't work out online.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I couldn't do that, which was really frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
But I could still teach, and I got all my students online and, figured out how to do it. And actually teaching online was interesting because there's a different rhythm to teaching online. You can't talk while somebody else is playing. Rhythm of sort of having somebody play for you and then getting feedback changes. And it was nice in that way to have a slightly different perspective on it.
I know when I tell people, oh, I'm teaching music online, they're like, what? How can you do that? They're not in person. How can you fix this and fix that? So, it was like the physicality of teaching online. Was that ever something that you felt like you lacked during COVID or something that was kind of missing from lessons?
There are certain things which are really hard to teach. Physically, I think a lot of it has to do with a student's attention being drawn to too many things at once.
Yeah.
Because they're reading the notes, they're trying to remember it, they're trying to get the fingering and the rhythms and all this stuff. And then if on top of that you say, hey, can you remember your posture? It's like just information overload. So the ways I try to work around that, I remove the fall board of the piano and I put an overhead cam. So I feel like the more information I can give them visually, the less they have to be working through things intellectually. And that helps. So yeah, as many different kinds of visual aids, props for the piano where you decorate with the names of notes, things like this. So yeah, I mean, there are challenges, but there are also workarounds that you can find.
Definitely. I know you're currently living in Indiana, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So as of now, as of today, Oclef is still mostly based on the West Coast, specifically San Jose. So how did you find Oclef and what was that like for you?
I found Oclef through higheredjobs.com.
Yeah.
It stuck out because it had a very, very detailed job description. Through the job description, it showed me that Oclef was really serious about education. It was serious about catering to the needs of students, especially children who needed, daily guidance. And it was trying to find innovative ways of working with technology to improve education. So I really liked that, and that's why I applied.
Nice. That's funny. I think Dr. Michael, when I was talking to him too, he said the same thing. He got it from, I think, some like higher ed. I'm pretty sure it was that same website.
I found it completely accidentally. So there's a website called Higher Ed Jobs. So the Oclef position came up. So it was sort of like a happy accident because the position is called professor. That's how the keyword search on Higher Ed Jobs picked it up.
So usually when I tell my friends, like, yes, I'm a professor at a school, they're like, oh, wow, you're a professor.
So prestigious, yeah. I know. And I won't say no to being called professor.
Yeah, so getting more into Oclef as like a company, so what stood out more to you beyond, just their general emphasis in education?
The daily lesson format, for one.
Mm-hmm.
seemed to me like a really, really good idea. Because as I told you already, my mother practiced with me every day, right? And I think that's one of the reasons that I could be successful early on in my studies. So the idea of being able to help my students that way was really attractive. And the other thing that I really liked about the company is that there's so many different musical things going on. I mean, there's the Oclef, where people are composing and arranging music. We have people coming up with improvisation classes and curriculums. There's a theory program. There's oral skills training. There's pop music, and everybody is just being really creative with how they want to teach music. And it's not just one kind of teaching. It's not like, oh, I'm going to train you to play the Tchaikovsky piano concerto and be a conservatory pianist. You find different avenues. You find what the students are going to enjoy most, what the best course of learning for them will be. And that was also very attractive.
Yeah, definitely. So since you've started, are there any specific projects that you get to do?
Yeah, well, when I started, I was sort of onboarding, and I worked on a part-time basis, which was great because I got to go help out with all the different kinds of classes that Oclef has to offer, and I saw everything that was going on. I got to meet everybody, and I realized everybody here at Oclef is really wonderful. Everybody's super nice. That was great. And then I transitioned to being full-time, and I acquired a pretty full studio right away. And I switched from doing the group classes to working one-on-one with my students and getting to know how that really feels. And I've really enjoyed it so far. It's been great working with these kids, and just figuring out how to work with them, and working with them every day.
I know a lot of the teachers say that one of the benefits is that since you get to see, the students every day, there's an emotional connection, getting to check in on them, making sure that everything's okay. That also feeds into them actually enjoying lessons.
Right.
Yeah. Would you say that's kind of changed how you taught before, or has it been an improvement?
Yeah, having that daily connection with a student has been really, really nice, because it's not like I can try to get to know a student once a week, but obviously it's different if you see them every single day. So I always try to ask them how they're doing. I try to remember what's going on in their lives, and then to make that relevant to what we're doing in the lesson.
Oh, nice. As far as that goes, are you mainly teaching stage 1 or stage 3 students?
I have, I want to say, 3 stage 3 students who are playing more advanced repertoire. Yeah, and then most of them are stage 1 students.
Oh, okay.
Which I really, really like working with. I like working on basics. But then it's good. I get to go work on more advanced music too.
And then are you still teaching some of the other classes, or is it mostly one-on-one right now?
I do some Kaizen classes, which is like the group practice. So yeah, a little bit of everything.
The one thing that I can vouch for with Oclef is that it definitely feeds into that collaborative environment that some of us are looking for. You get to see not only your students, but even in Kaizen, even in musicality, you get to meet so many other students from other professors and help more than just, your set studio.
Right. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I know eventually when the stage 1 students move on, they experience all the different teachers at Oclef. Yeah, it's great that they're not just stuck with one person the whole time.
Yeah, one of my favorite things is when I encounter a student in Kaizen or musicality, and then I'll cover for their professor maybe a few weeks later or something, and they're like, "Oh, I remember you. Hello, Miss Kai." And I'm like, "Aw."
Yeah.
It's so nice because I think with the online learning, a lot of people see that as a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the point that you brought up, that piano can be such an isolating instrument. You would think that, with online learning, it's even more isolating, but it's not.
No, it's not. We're part of this community that we have here, and it's online. There's a lot of interaction, there's a lot of fun and laughter, and it's great.
Yeah. And then, so last question. I mentioned it a little bit briefly, but are there any projects that you're currently working on? I know some professors have some don't.
Yeah, I'm currently working on a couple projects, but they're still very much in development. So when I have an update for you, I'll definitely post more. Yeah, I'm mainly interested in pedagogy, we were talking about what makes a really successful pedagogue. How do they approach the student? How do they teach certain concepts? How do they manage time in the lesson? And like that. So I think some kind of project building on pedagogy is in the works for sure.
Definitely. I think that would be super beneficial because I know when the stage 4 students are like old enough, they get to be apprentices, and the apprentices would get to learn, how can I be a better instructor?
Yeah, well, pedagogy, yeah, not just for apprentices, but also for, the professors, the faculty, because I think Glenda set up this really wonderful thing. It was Kaizen pedagogy workshops, and we all got together and we, observed each other teaching sample Kaizen classes and took notes and made suggestions. So, yeah, for all of us, it's an ongoing process.
I didn't even think of that. Wow. That would be amazing. Yeah, the Kaizen pedagogy classes that we did for that 1 month, I think, when was that? Like April or May?
Yeah,
Those are really fun, and I think a lot of us, got more out of it than we thought. We learned different tricks and techniques, more efficient ways to teach the kids.
yeah. And talking about a team environment, that's the really nice thing. Everybody here has a very different kind of background. We all have our own perspectives and the way we deal with things. So it's great for all of us to get together and see how different people problem solve the same issue and to learn from one another. It's really beneficial that way.
Yeah, definitely. Ooh, I'm excited. I hope that project goes well.
I hope so too. I'll let you know.
Awesome. But yeah, and I guess as like a final question, how has Oclef been for you overall, and are there any big things that you're excited to see in the near future with Oclef?
Yeah, one of the great things about Oclef is it's growing so quickly. And there's always new courses, there's new faculty coming in, new students always coming in. And the thing that excites me most is how we take this platform, this community, which all of us together can be more than the sum of our parts, and how we build on it to expand to the East Coast, perhaps, or to partner with teachers outside of Oclef or music programs outside of Oclef, and to really become an integral part to improving music education, not just within ourselves, but hopefully in the country.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
I'm excited to see how things take off because right when COVID started, I think I was one of the first new professors. It's been so exciting getting to see, Oclef grow as a company, as a school, seeing how Diaghilev grew.
What do you think some of the biggest changes in terms of growth you've seen have been?
So I guess first and foremost, like with physical growth being like the number of students, I think in the time that I've been teaching here, I think the number of students has like tripled, if not quadrupled, which is insane.
Yeah.
When I first started, Diaghilev wasn't a thing. I think the music theory 8VA program was still like in its very early beginnings. So it was mostly just, these are things that will be coming in the near future. And I was like, okay, whatever. That's everything that's going to come maybe years after, but it all happened so quickly with the uncertainties of like COVID and stuff. A lot of parents were like, oh, well, we still want music. And with all of these students came all of these ideas for classes.
Yeah.
Just growth everywhere. Half of these classes that we have now just didn't exist. The new jam classes, the Audiate class led by Therese, that was not a thing for a while, and then it just happened. And it's just, wow. There are so many people, like you said, coming from different backgrounds who have these different ideas, and we're all just doing it. We don't, there's no limit to what we can do.
Right.
And I think the kids get to benefit from that too, because they're like, oh, well, I have a teacher who teaches this, but I also have a teacher who teaches something else. And it's just kind of like the exposure that you don't get from normal traditional piano classes.
Right. And Oclef is like the platform that kind of lets us do it. Like, it's that switch that goes, oh, maybe I have an idea to do like a jam class, to actually get it done, making the syllabus, having a whole bunch of students. It also does it for the students too. There have been a few students who produce albums or publish little books of compositions or things like that. And so it's a wonderful way of keeping people motivated.
Exactly. Even now, like as a full-time student, I would expect to be, so busy and bombarded with all of these projects, but it's so flexible and the work environment is so, I guess, liberating because I don't feel like I'm being forced to do anything. It's like I'm doing something that I enjoy doing.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, those would be my big changes that I've noticed over the years.
Since you started. Yeah. Well, there have been a few big changes, and like you mentioned, I haven't been here all that long, but yeah, things change at a very rapid pace.
Like I said, I thought maybe these changes would have happened like years later, like at most maybe like 5 years later, but nope, it just happened all of a sudden.
Right. People just make it happen, which is great.
Yeah, and that's what I love about Oclef. If you want to do it, let's get it done, and that's all it should be. But yeah, so I think that's a good place to wrap everything up. Thank you so much for talking with me today, Dr. Justin, and I'm really excited to share your story with others.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and thanks for listening, everyone. That is a wrap for today's Kai Report.